Hi, I'm Carrie and welcome to So Darn Fun. Welcome to my sunny backyard. This is a channel that focuses on quality clothing alterations, pattern reviews, and useful sewing how-tos. But while it's sunny, I decided to do some filming out of doors. And today, we're going to do a pattern review on the lyric dress from Love Notions. A lot of sewers do a Me Made May month where they make clothing just for themselves. My Mays are filled with brides and proms, and so I'm not able to do that. So this July, I'm doing a just for me July, especially because I've got a 25th anniversary celebration coming up next month in a nice warm tropical location. There's a couple clothing items I would love to make and take along with me. So I decided to do some pattern reviews for you, and hopefully I'll get these edited and put out before I leave. So let's go on the journey together as I put together this lyric dress and give you my feedback on how it went, etc. Like any PDF pattern, first off, you've got to print it off. And then after you print it off, you spend the time, which I find kind of relaxing, just to position them and tape them together. The instructions are very clear in the file that you get on how to do this. Accuracy is really important so that your pattern pieces line up. Sometimes I find that my printer doesn't print each page exactly centered. It might be off by a smidge, so sometimes I do have to make allowances for that and just make sure that the lines that are printed are the things that I'm lining up, not the edges of my page. And of course, anyone who's done a lot of sewing knows that when you're trying a new pattern, it is so important that you make a muslin first. So, being that this is a dress, I didn't feel the need to make it all the way long, knowing that this full flared skirt was going to fit the lower half of my body. So basically what I did is I made the top portion, there's a waist seam, and then made a little bit of a peplum just so that I could see how the waist was going to fit. So let's stop in and see how that muslin fit. So here's my muslin, and preliminarily, I really like the way that it fits. I have to keep in mind that my muslin fabric is literally cotton muslin, and so it's stiffer than the flowy fabric I'm going to be using. And I didn't cut the bottom portion the whole length of the dress because I just really didn't need to see that. I'm mainly concerned about how the body is going to fit. And even though I could probably do little tweaking and stuff, I don't think it's gonna matter. Not for what I want and not for the flowy fabric that's going to drape much better than this cotton. The only thing that I see, I know my shoulders tend to be a little bit crooked. This shoulder here, I've got a little bit up on top. So I think I'm going to pinch that in just slightly. Let me look at my mirror over here. So if I kind of pinch that in 1/4 of an inch right here at the neckline and taper out to the original seam out here, I think that's going to give just a better fit for my body. I think all in all, the bust darts, there's a bust dart and a waist dart, I think they're going to work fine. I could get picky about that, but I'm not going to. The one thing that I will be picky about is I just want more flutter in the sleeve, and that has nothing to do with the fit of the pattern, but just preference. So I'm going to widen this sleeve at the bottom by 10 inches. And I think I'm going to get more of a flutter that I'll be more happy with. I don't think I need to do anything back here. I think it's going to drape just fine, especially for what I want, just a nice, comfortable, flowy dress. So let's get to the table and do some pattern tweaking on those sleeves so that I can have 10 inches more flutter. And then I will make some marks on my pattern to be sure I take in my right shoulder angle. So all in all, I think this is a really good fit for the muslin, and I'm really excited to get this dress done. Because I don't have a collar on this, and there's no like a shirt collar, I think it's gonna lay fine. So if I have a rounded back issue, which I usually do on a lot of my patterns, I don't think I need to make any more space to make it ride higher up on my neck. I think it's gonna work just fine. So for that shoulder angle on the front, remember this is only going to be on the right side of my bodice, so I have to make sure I keep that in mind when I cut this out. Here's the bodice front, here's the center front right here. So I know that toward my neck is where I need the greatest degree of slant, and it was about 1/4 inch. So up at the top here, I'm gonna place my straight edge 1/4 inch from the edge there. I'm gonna taper it back to the original seam line right there. So this is what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna do that to the front and the back. That's the front piece. Here's the back piece, and same thing. And keeping in mind, so when I lay these pattern pieces out, I need to make sure that I cut them out so that I have a right side and a left side, and I know which one is which. Because I knew that I wanted a sleeve that was probably a little bit more flared than the pattern came with. I have a sleeve of a top I really love at home. I measured that, and I wanted to widen the sleeve. So let me show you how I widened the sleeve to make it even more flary. And now for my flutter sleeve, I need 10 more inches along this bottom edge. So my plan is to find center, and I've already found center by folding the pattern piece in half, and it's actually not exactly where that notch is. I'm gonna go ahead and draw a line. That was the center right there. And I'm gonna place my slashes about 1 inch apart. So I'm gonna start at 1/2 inch on each side of my center line here. Okay, so now I get to ignore this line. And now I'm gonna place 5 lines on each side of that center. I don't really want to get into this area right here. I want to leave that, that kind of the under armpit area without having any change. So I'm just going to kind of do the areas that are going to correspond to the upper sleeve, where it aligns more to the shoulder area. I've shown this before in another video. You may have seen it, maybe not, but if not, and this is new to you, this is how you get a great flutter sleeve. Even if you start with just a regular sleeve pattern, this one already has a little bit of flutter to it. I'm just wanting to add more. And I know I wanted to add 10 more inches because I already have a flutter sleeve in a top, and I measured the circumference of the bottom of the sleeve, so I knew what I wanted to add to this. I'm gonna cut from the bottom up, but I'm gonna leave this attached up here. And this is the shoulder area, so I'm gonna leave that attached because I don't want that to change. I just want the bottom to change. So I'm gonna cut 10 of these lines all the way up to, but not through, that upper portion. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. Fringy. What I want to do is make 1 inch between each of these spaces. So let's start out by just simply taping the center of the pattern here so it doesn't go anywhere. Notice I've got another piece of paper underneath. I'm making a new pattern piece. That's what's going on here. So I'm going to carefully measure, and it actually doesn't have to be exact by the time I'm done. I just kind of know approximately what I want. Now what do? We need to draw a line. You can either freehand drawing these, just making a smooth transition between all these pieces, or you can get a curved ruler. I'm gonna go grab mine. This is a French curve, and it tends to be useful for situations like this. And we're just gonna try to draw a line here that's gonna fasten all these together. So now this is going to be the bottom portion of my sleeve. And yes, the top portion, as funny as this looks, this is now my shoulder. Doesn't look like a normal shoulder on a sleeve, but that is correct. So let us cut out our new piece. And on this pattern there is a notch. I'm going to keep that notch there. I'm gonna make it pretty obvious right there, because that lines up with the shoulder seam of the bodice of this particular pattern. Some of you are gonna scold me for using my good fabric scissors. That's okay. I can get them sharpened. Okay, and then finishing off here. That is the shape of our new pattern. And I think I'm gonna just take these pieces off. Maybe I'll tape them back together so I don't have to print out another pattern in case I want to use it just regular. And I'll have it taped back together, and then I'll have my new fluttered piece here. Now it's time to cut out the pattern pieces out of that beautiful fabric. But there's just a couple things to take note of. I'm cutting out the pattern pieces now, and this is the skirt pattern. And I just want to point out that on my muslin, I did not do a pocket, which isn't necessary when you do a muslin, but for the side pocket on this pattern, there is the option to fold it in right here where I've drawn a pink line, which I'm going to do. I'm going to fold it back. And then this portion is not going to be cut out. But for my muslin, I did cut it out for the no pocket, no side pocket option, just so that we didn't have to mess with pocket stuff when we were looking at fitting. So I will fold this in now, and there will be a pocket inserted into that side seam. Okay, I'm getting ready to cut out the back skirt piece, and it's worth noting that when you place this on the fold for your back piece, be sure you unfold this here, or you might accidentally cut out a pocket piece for your back skirt portion, which you're not supposed to do. So be sure you unfold this when you cut out the back piece. You might notice a shortened piece that I've got laying on top on the front and back. That is because I'm going to put kind of a liner, like a slip underneath that's shorter, just to kind of make it less see-through on the skirt portion. Here I've got the sleeve, the pockets, because yeah, if there's pockets, give me pockets. And then front and back pieces over here. I can't wait to sew it together. I'm excited. I think it's going to be super cute. So I'm going to work at the pocket installation right now, and I need to use the front pieces. This is the wrong side, and remember I'm putting in that kind of slip or liner thing that I've cut, not the full length. So I am laying that on the underside of my front piece, and I'm going to sew it as one with it, so it's not going to be loose as if it was like a slip worn underneath. Now you notice that when I line up the pocket edge here, this is the side seam, here's where the pocket's going to go. You'll notice that this falls short of the front edge. That's because this front edge is going to fold in like this. And to reduce bulk, I didn't want and didn't need my lining layer to also come and fold back. So that's what's going to happen there. So that's my next step. This is what I've got so far. The bodice here, I like the flare on these sleeves. I'm really liking how I expanded that fullness. We don't have the sides closed up yet because the directions have us sew the front pieces on and the back piece, and then we're going to just sew the side seam in one swoop. Here's our back. I'm excited. I really like how this is looking so far. So here for an update, I've got the skirt put on. We've got this really nice binding along the edge of the neckline. I like how that was done. All I have left to do now is the hem on the sleeves, the hem on the bottom of the skirt, and of course the buttons all the way down. So far so good. I'll get back to you. Time for buttons. 16 buttons. That's a lot of buttons. I have these pearl, mother of pearl buttons. I've got a big bag of them. So I think that those will work. And thankfully, I have a really good buttonhole maker on my sewing machine, though it's not my favorite thing to do. I think we'll get some buttonholes in here that will at least do the job. So now it's time to cut those buttonholes. You could snip it with scissors. You could use a little seam ripper, poke it in and slide it, hoping that you don't actually cut your buttonhole. Or you can use one of these little tools. I've had this one for a long time and it's one of my favorite methods, even though sometimes I do use the other methods. But with these 16 buttonholes, this just seemed to be the quickest for me. And then of course, let's not forget sewing on all those buttons, and let's see how it looks when it's all finished. So here's the dress. I love the fact that it has pockets. They're not very deep, so if I was to make it again, I would probably lengthen the pockets to make them deeper. I love the flutter sleeves. Love, love, love. I'm so glad that I widened them. The neckline is perfect. It lays perfect. I love the placket. There's really not anything not to love about this dress. I like the fact that there's so many buttons that go down. It holds everything closed nicely. The flare is subtle. It's not too much that it's gonna blow up in a strong wind, but it is flared, it's feminine. I think I'm gonna get a lot of mileage out of this dress. So now it's time for me to give this pattern my so darned fun score. There is a total possible of 50 points. Each one of these categories wants to score the maximum possible. So the categories are the pattern price, and I score that on how many views there are for the cost of the pattern, how easy it is to assemble, how clear are those instructions, and does it fit well without making any alterations, thus the muslin that I try, and then is it easy to make any fitting adjustments that are necessary. So category 1, pattern price. Love Notions gives a they call it a Feature Friday pattern. So every Friday, if you're on their mailing list, you will get notification of a pattern that they will put on their Feature Friday for only $5. So I got this pattern for $5. The normal price is $12.50. So that's still a good price, even if you're gonna pay full price. And in this pattern, you get 2 different skirt options. You get a gathered skirt, or you can opt for a flared skirt, which means that it's a 1-to-1 fit attached to the bodice, but the skirt flares out, as opposed to having gathers fit into that waistline. There are many sleeve options. First, there's a sleeveless option. You have a long sleeve option. You have a short sleeve option. You have a flutter sleeve option, and you have, I think it's a bishop or bell sleeve option. So you have many sleeve options that you can use. You could also make it into a top with a peplum, which is super cute. So I think, especially being that I got this on a Feature Friday, for the pattern price, that scores a 10, the best possible score it can get. Category number 2, ease in assembly. How easy was this for me to sew together? This was a super easy pattern. It's really straightforward. If I was to point out something that might be a little bit more difficult, especially for a newer sewer, I would say it would be the neckline binding that goes inside. But even still, I made my own bias tape, but even still, it went on really well. I think the instructions are really clear on how you apply that and to get a really nice finish. So that category scores a 10 also. Number 3, clarity of instructions. Now I do have a few things to say about this. So there's the instructions in actually sewing the garment together, and there's also the printing instructions. So I'm going to include that in this category. I found that there was a little bit of confusion about the printing, I think. I ended up with 2 extra pages. First, let me say that there is a little box in the patterns, and I'll slide a photo in here, that tells you whatever view you're using and which pages you need to print. So I followed that closely and found out that I had 2 pages that printed twice, and it might be because those pages were needed for the bodice and they were also needed for the skirt. So if I was not taping them all together, I was doing them somehow separately, I might need those extra pages, but I just threw them away because I didn't need them. But I also found out that the pocket pieces were missing. I checked this about 3 times, and I can't see in this little box where the pocket pieces are ever included or anywhere. I just happened to realize, where's my pockets? And I went back into the diagram to see where those pockets were and printed off those pages. And just for your FYI, those would be pages 45, 46, and 47. Otherwise, they're kind of left out of the list of what you should print for what view you want. I thought that the instructions were a little bit confusing on a couple parts, and I'll just kind of highlight the part where you sew the skirt to the bodice. There's two skirts, remember, there's the gathered skirt and then there's the flared skirt, and there is a little title that says gathered skirt option. And if you don't look carefully, you'll see that it's marked with an A that's in parentheses. And then there's a diagram showing the gathered skirt option. But I'm doing the flared skirt option, and I couldn't find a title that said that. I didn't feel like I needed to read every single word in this if I felt that that section didn't apply to me. But it actually did apply to me, because right underneath that little A section, it just continues the standard directions for the rest of the dress. So it was the instruction that I needed for my flared skirt, but it wasn't designated, you know, all other views or a flared skirt or anything like that. So I had to kind of do some searching to see where are my instructions. It is there, but I felt that it could have been labeled differently so that I knew that this is where I need to pick up at. I think that the clarity of instructions with both the printing and the construction of just a couple portions of this kind of falls short of my 10. So I'm going to score this an 8 in the clarity of instructions, just because of those couple little things. Now, I have to say that I downloaded this pattern probably a couple years ago. They might have updated it by now, I don't know. So I'm gonna say that, you know, that's kind of the benefit of the PDF downloadable patterns. They can go back and they can fix it. And then if you re-download it, it might be current, but I didn't. So next one, fit out of the box. Now this is, how does this dress fit without me making any changes whatsoever to the length or anything like that? This pattern is drafted for somebody who's 5'5". I'm 5'8", so I know my body is longer than the size that the pattern was drafted for. However, I found that it fit me spectacularly. I thought it was really good. I felt that the waist fell exactly where it needed to go. The length was even good. That was the length that I wanted. I wouldn't want it any longer, not for what I wanted it for. I felt that everything was appropriate to my body size, even though I'm taller than what it's drafted for. So fit out of the box has got to get a 10. Also, the neckline was not too low. It fit really well. It was modest. I don't feel like I have to wear a cami under it. I just think the fit was made for me, which is exactly what I like to experience. Last category, ease in making fitting adjustments. The only fitting adjustment I needed to make, I outlined for you during the making of the muslin. I have a shoulder my shoulders are a little uneven, so I needed to pinch it in on my right shoulder just 1/4 of an inch. It was easy to make that adjustment on the pattern, which I walked you through, and I think that the final outcome couldn't have been any better. It just pinching that in for me was what made it lay flat on my right shoulder, and I couldn't be happier. I love this dress. I can see myself making more, and even maybe the top options. So my So Darn Fun score for the Love Notions lyric dress is 48. I'm so happy with this pattern. I think you will be too. And I would encourage you to pick it up, especially if they have it on another $5 Friday and you can just get it for $5. I am not paid by them whatsoever from Love Notions or any other pattern company to review their pattern or to say nice things about it. So this is just completely unbiased review. I'm happy. Please let me know in the comments if you have ever made this dress, if you're going to make this dress, or if I've given any kind of clarity to questions you might have had. Thank you for joining me today on So Darn Fun. I hope to see you next time, and don't forget, keep on sewing. I'm sure it makes the world a happier place. Have a great day.